Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Around the Payload, a high noon production. I'm your host, Blevins, and we have a star-studded cast for you today, who I will introduce in just a second. But if you are new to the show, just a little bit of a rundown here. I guess it's a very original show concept, so if you've never seen it, you definitely have never heard of this one before. It's definitely not just a copy of ESPN's Around the Horn. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different topics in and around the Overwatch League and in the greater Overwatch scene. Everyone is going to be giving their points here. Everyone's going to get a chance to talk, and I'm going to be doling out points as the overseeing gamekeeper here. You're going to hear a sound that sounds kind of like this. That is just the contestants getting points. You don't need to worry. You did not forget to turn off Overwatch. But without further ado, let's start with introducing the hosts here. We've got to my top left, we've got Thist from the Laggin' Balls podcast and Convert to Raid and writer for Double Tap Esports. What's up? Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Cool. And to my upper right, we have the one and only Bare Hands, former NYXL Director of Player Personnel. What's up, buddy? Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
We've been waiting to get you on for quite some time, and you just had a job in the league, so you couldn't get. But now I see why everything's done there. It's to get on Around the Payload, of course.
Right. I just needed to free up some time.
Yeah, too busy with that Overwatch League mumbo jumbo. To my bottom left, we have the now infamous Effin' Taco, who is, of course, host of All Things Considered and co-founder of OverwatchScore.com. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And we have the newcomer this week, Lemon Kiwi, Overwatch commentator, Overwatch Contenders Daily Show host, and the Female Pro League co-founder. Welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. I don't have a cool Overwatch League job, but I'm still kind of cool.
That's okay. Neither do I. So, although I'm definitely not cool. So, but let's start it off here in round number 1.
Round 1. Capture the objective.
So it's been a long road for Dallas Fuel fans here, and it started out in the preseason. Everyone had great expectations for the Dallas Fuel, obviously being envious before. Did not pan out in the first 3 stages of Overwatch League, and now we're starting to actually see a little bit of success from Dallas Fuel, going 2-0 last week. So, Thist, we'll start with you. Is Dallas Fuel finally living up to the expectation that everyone had from them in the preseason?
I mean, it certainly seems that way, like as far as last week goes. But I think that it's definitely too early to tell. Since the stage began, Mickey being so obviously proficient on Brigitte, we've definitely seen them play better together. Mm-hmm. This meta suits Mickey and Seagull really well. And I feel like it's giving Taimu confidence, and I think that's a big factor with Taimu, because his Widowmaker has obviously, I mean, we all knew he had it in him, you know, but like
Mr.
we're seeing it now.
Himself.
Exactly. But like until last week, they hadn't beat anyone but China for 3 months or something, including games in this stage. So it seemed like although they suited the meta more, there was no more evidence of Dallas getting better. But last week, with their 2-0 win against not China, it feels like things are finally falling into place, and I want to have a positive outlook because I obviously love Dallas, but I want them to start succeeding and winning games again, but I do think it's too early to tell.
Yeah, I mean, according to Dallas Fuel fans, they're the best team in the stage, but that's a different conversation. Bare Hands, what are your thoughts here on Dallas? Are they finally as good as people thought they were going to be?
I'm going to say no, because going into the season, everybody looked at Dallas Fuel like they were a top 3, top 4 team. Mm-hmm. And I think they still have the potential to be like a playoff team. Like, maybe I don't think they're going to make the playoffs in season 1, but I think they still have the potential to be a good team with this roster. Mm-hmm. But they're not a top 3 or top 4 team right now. Like, they just got beat 4-0 by Gladiators, right? And the other teams that they have played so far this stage, I just don't think that they have proven that they are of that caliber yet. We've absolutely seen a lot of improvement, and I think adding Arrow, I think there's a lot of improvement still to come with that team. So I think they'll definitely get better. But are they living up to their expectations from preseason? No way. Like, they were projected to be a one of the best teams in the league, and I still don't think we've seen that from them.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Lemon, I want your thoughts here on Dallas. Like they've had a little bit of a resurgence lately, especially compared to their first three stages. What are you thinking about Dallas?
I kind of have to agree with the guy before me, bearded fellow, but they have huge expectations, and are they going to meet them? I think their issue is consistency. Yes, they might look good this stage because they're trying out Brigitte. They have a better grip on the meta right now, and I think the broadcast had mentioned that Dallas have a 78% pick rate, not win rate, with Brigitte right now, so almost a one-dimensional type of success at the moment. And I feel like in the later coming weeks, I think other teams are going to have a better grip on the meta and Brigitte. So although Dallas look good right now, where is their consistency later on in the weeks, and how are teams going to counter this one-dimensional strategy that they're bringing out?
Definitely a really good point there. It seems like Dallas has really leaned into Brigitte more than some of the other teams. Taco, last words here. Dallas Fuel, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with another flavor of Bare Hands' answer and say yes, they're going to live up to their preseason expectations by being a team that's good enough to beat the Seoul Dynasty. However, the Seoul Dynasty are not the team that everyone expected them to be. I think it's too soon to say. They beat Philly. Philly's had a really easy schedule, so their record doesn't show just how much they've been stumbling thus far. I think all in all, being like somewhere in between the Florida Mayhem and the San Francisco Shock is not the expectations for that team. They haven't shown enough to prove that they're any better than that yet. Roster's got quality. Them like not being on fire anymore is a good thing for them. They'll be a lot more fun to watch. They're more committed to the Brigitte meta than virtually anybody else. So it's cool to see that. They've got a much different strat that they're running. All that's nice. I think they're on the right path. Arrow needs more time. They need season 2 and some reinforcements.
Some reinforcement. Okay, I'm not making any bold predictions with Johnny leaving the analyst desk and jumping onto the Dallas Fuel. Who knows? You heard it here first, folks. And also last. You heard it here last as well. Let's move on to the second topic here. Again, we'll continue talking about Dallas. Obviously, they are now plus a coach in Arrow. Shock has gained Krusty from the Boston Uprising. Both Dallas and San Francisco Shock looking better with their new coaching staff, and Boston kind of struggling with the loss of their coach. So, Bare Hands, we'll start with you here. How impactful are these maybe individual coaches and then coaches in general in the Overwatch League?
Sure. I think in general, coaches in the Overwatch League can have a huge impact on teams and can, really alter a team's performance and preparation. But I think it's dangerous to give too much of the credit for what we're seeing from Dallas specifically to Arrow. I think Arrow's a fantastic coach, but he's been with that team for like 10 days or something. Like he just needs a little bit more time. And I think we will see improvement and a better team result from Arrow being there. But I think the improvements that we've seen in Dallas recently have a lot more to do with the meta shift than they do with Arrow's recent involvement.
Gotcha. Definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, Reddit is going to jump to conclusions instantly, like, "Oh, Arrow's the best coach in the world. Kai worst coach in the world." Like that's what Reddit just immediately jumps to. But that, of course, is Reddit. Lemon, what are your thoughts here on coaching an Overwatch League and maybe these specific coaches?
Well, I think coaching or the overall staff around the players are just as important as the players themselves. And you kind of saw a black and white situation from Kai leaving to Arrow coming in. There's starting to be improvements, and I'm not just talking about strategy, synergy, ult coordination, whatever you want to say in the game, but overall the player happiness, mental health, and really giving the players a break. And there's been stuff posted online from Arrow's sort of vision with the team of course, they're not going to make playoffs or whatever. So now they're more focusing on making the players happy, making sure they're getting time for World Cup. And he's very player oriented and not in the same way Kai was, but he brings structure to the Dallas Fuel. And I think that has been shown improvement already.
Yeah, structure and the Dallas Fuel, not a combination of words you've seen used since Arrow came in. Taco, what are your thoughts here on coaching, Overwatch League, and these two teams?
Yeah, I think that coaching is obviously very important. I think structure, like people said, a system and kind of an attitude I talked to Deepe for a while about coaching in the Overwatch League recently, and a lot of what he kind of hammered is keeping the team oriented on a goal, having a philosophy behind how you do VOD reviews, how you approach compositions, how you do these things. So when you have bad matches, you have an agreed upon philosophy that everybody can rally behind. I think in the long term, yeah, coaching is very impactful. I think it's way too soon, and I also agree that Arrow's a great coach, but like Bearhan said, he's barely gotten with the team yet. I think that this is more credit to the players and the meta shift. I would say that Krusty going to Shock, also too early to say, though I do not think it's too early to say that Krusty leaving Boston is probably, part of their woes, though I think the meta is a big part of that as well. But I don't think it's the lack of him being there as much as the drama that must have led to him not being there anymore that's probably causing their issues.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to see in that. Thist, last words here on coaching in the Overwatch League.
I agree with everybody. It's too early to tell about these new coaches and their positions and how things are going. But since the season began, like Uprising, Shock, Spitfire, the Dragons, and Fuel have changed coaches. And although I think coaching is impactful because it is a leadership position, there's so many variables that can make the right coach and the wrong coach. I think it's hard to determine who will be the best coach because of that. History with the players, like language barriers, coaching style versus player style, and personality clashes and things like that. So I don't know. I think the best coaches will be able to navigate all of that. But I don't know if these two coaches in particular are that. Maybe just the stars are aligning at the moment for some and not others. But yeah, no, I think the right coach is impactful. But you've got to be a really good coach.
I feel like Reddit is going to that butterfly meme, and the butterfly is Brigitte, and Reddit's like, is this because of coaching? And who knows? We'll see how describing a meme on the spot in podcast form works. It's not very good. Let's move on to the last question here in round number one. A report, a Reddit post. Oh man, I really should just have checked the source here, but. I'm not, this is why I don't have a fancy job with Overwatch League. A PC Gamer report mentioned that Blizzard is looking to expand to 6 additional teams potentially for Season 2. I believe they mentioned a couple in Europe, a couple in the Americas, and a couple in some other regions in the world. So, Lemon, I wanted to start with you here. Is this, what are your thoughts on 6 being the number? Is it too few? Is it too many? Is it too early for this addition of teams? What are your thoughts here?
Well, from a business perspective, obviously you'd be off your rocker not to sell $20 million spots. More money in the league has benefits to everybody in it. And obviously bringing in new teams, something fresh, it keeps the league not stale. It brings new viewers in and new fans from wherever. But from a personal standpoint, from where my heart is, I just feel like we're saturated with matches right now. There's so much Overwatch content right now. If it's Contenders, Open Division, and the Overwatch League, there's not... You'd have to watch Overwatch 24/7 to keep up with all 3 tiers, and adding even more teams to Overwatch League seems like you add more teams, you're going to have more matches, and it's hard to keep up as it is. I would have liked, instead of just adding teams, I would have liked maybe a relegation system of, instead of seeing Shanghai Dragons lose another 60 games or Dallas Fuel bomb out another stage somehow, to just relegate the bottom teams out to hungry and competent Contenders teams instead of them just getting scouted up by individually. Why not just bring the whole team that wins Contenders into the bottom spot, or bring Contenders teams up that way? But like I said, from a business perspective, it makes sense to sell those spots. But if you brought out a Contenders team and then maybe sell that roster to a city or a region to represent them, I just think that would make the players less complacent and more hungry to actually try and improve. Because I think even Kai said that once you're in the Overwatch League, you're chilling, you're making tons of money, and there's not really much fear. So maybe having a relegation system instead of just adding spots to whoever buys it and random scouting, I think that would be better.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting the let's just get Shanghai out of here. Savage. I love it though. Taco, what are your thoughts here on 6 being the number for Season 2 potentially?
I think 6 is about right, and they'll probably add another 6 for season 3, and then hit with 24 teams for season 3 when they regionally are aiming to regionally locate the teams. I think 6 is about right to help them refill their war chest. So basically, as the league grows, they're going to charge more and more for the teams, right? They charge 20 million about initially for season 1. They're going to charge 30 to 60 for season 2. So they could ramp it up higher and charge up front now and not get to charge more later. They could do less than 6 teams, but the Overwatch League's a very expensive operation. There's a lot of stuff people don't see that goes into making this run. If you go and like wander around behind the scenes at the arena, you can see just making the arena at all is very expensive. So they need to refill that war chest. I think 6 is about right. I'm a little concerned, even with 2 more in the United States, that'll put them up to 11 of 18 teams in the U.S. They have this goal once they're regionally located of being able to ship teams out to different parts of the world for longer stretches of time. So you don't play a game in Seoul one day and then London the next day and then LA the next day. So I think that they may be building up a little bit too heavily on the United States, but they can also charge more for those slots. So that may be an indicator of how much demand there is overseas as opposed to in the U.S.
Yeah, and I believe they said in the Americas, so we might be able to, fingers crossed, get that Toronto team. Which I know, Thist, you're, of course, going to be very excited about. So let's go to you. What are you thinking about for 6 teams here for season 2?
I mean, I'm living for a Canadian team, of course. I know Lemon is too, probably. But I'm torn on it because I do think that it's too early to bring in more. And just because, like... I'm thinking like as a cautious fan or somebody like trying to get into Overwatch League, there's just been so many new faces this season, trades and rotations, and it hardly ever seemed like a team really got a chance to settle and become an entity. And like as a fan, like it was initially hard to get to know these teams and the players because of how often things changed. And I worry that adding yet more teams and more players and more staff to the league in season 2 will make it like more overwhelming for the new or cautious Overwatch League fan. Like Overwatch League is doing really well, and a lot of that comes from like memes and inside jokes built up around the teams and players. And while more teams and players invite more people and more jokes, I just feel like it's too soon.
Definitely could be interesting to see 6 additional teams. But Barehand's last words here. What are your thoughts on 6?
I think 6 is a pretty good number. One thing that nobody's really mentioned when you factor in a number of additional teams you're adding is things like scheduling and divisions. You have to keep all of that in mind when you determine the number of teams that you're going to add. I don't think it's too many. I would like to see us get ramped up to 24, like kind of as quickly as possible. And you guys talk about how like it's difficult to keep track of all the games and all the matches. But if you look at something like the NBA or Major League Baseball, like fans of those sports don't necessarily watch every game that every team in the league plays, right? Like you pick your team and you keep track of your team. So like, yeah, there might be 24 teams, but nobody's saying you have to know who's, you know, the support player for the, you know, London Spitfire if you're a fan of LA Gladiators, right? So like just being able to keep track of your team, I think, is the most important thing. And I just want to see more representation like globally. And I think it'd be great to have a Canadian team. Like I'm really hoping to get a Seattle team. I think that would be awesome. But I also think that there's a lot of markets in Europe that would be great, like London and France and Germany should both get teams.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't need to know the support player for London Spitfire. You just need to know Jonak. That's all you need. You don't need to know any other players really in the league at all. But that's neither here nor there. That is going to bring us to the end of round number 1. Let's do a quick recap of the scores for the podcast people and future past present podcast. I still don't know how that works. We've got actually a 3-way tie in second place here. We've got Taco, Thist, and Barehands with 17, and Lemon leading the way with 18 points here. And as I like to say, we still got a lot of time, and it's anyone's game as we go into round number 2.
Round 2. Capture the objective.
So one of the things that has almost been the like soft downfall of the Seoul Dynasty is really their roster decisions throughout almost the entirety of Overwatch League so far. We've seen all sorts of players on main tank, including, but not limited to, Ryu Jae Hong, the star support player, flex support player for them. We've seen him on main tank as of recently. So, Taco, we'll start with you here. Who should Seoul be running for main tank?
Miro. So everybody loves Ryu.
All right, there we go. Good.
End of answer. I'm good. Everybody loved Ryu Jae Kong. I was at the arena in the media room when they first ran him out, and we were all like prepping our stuff for interviews in like little different rooms and stuff. And then somebody like came out in the hallways like, Seoul's got Ryu Jae Kong on Winston. Everybody kind of like ran out of all the different rooms and ran out onto the floor of the arena because we could not believe it. And he actually was a pretty serviceable Winston, but he is not a serviceable Reinhardt. So unfortunately, that experiment kind of has to end in a more diverse meta. I think that Seoul is facing similar problems. To wrap it up, to London, their issues, they may have player issues, but run your best main tank at main tank. They need to get their situation figured out with regard to how they're preparing, how they deal with adversity, how they reorient after hard losses or after things go wrong, how they correct mistakes. And I think that they need to look internally at some of their systems and some of their coaching operations more so than they need to be looking at which players can we move from whatever they're currently doing to play main tank.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. And I'm giving you an extra point here for the most unique pronunciation of Riju Jae Kong that I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
Did that skip?
Yeah, we'll blame it on internet issues, Taco. Don't worry. What are you thinking here with Seoul Dynasty and their main tank issues and even like their greater roster issues here?
I don't even know. Why not Ryu Jae Kong, or what did you call him?
Riju Jae Kong is the new official pronunciation. We'll get it on the next episode or on the next week of Overwatch League. We'll get the signs out.
Okay, so maybe like this new version of Ryu Jae Kong, maybe that's his new tank name. But Ana isn't so different from Winston, right? No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, I think Seoul's in a position where shaking things up a bit or a lot is probably the best way forward. I mean, why not at this point? Why not? It kind of worked out for Dallas, accidentally. So like, why not Seoul as well? We know that Ryu is a competent player and his performance as a tank was passable. And, with more practice, he could definitely be a force to be reckoned with. Maybe. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it was passable in that if given the opportunity, I would pass on it. But bare hands, what are you thinking here with Seoul, their roster, and their whole tank fiasco?
I personally think it's bonkers to put Ryu Jae Hong on tank. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me when he's one of the best support players in the world. Not only are you not playing a very good tank player when you have better tank players on your roster, but you're also now not able to play Ryu Jae Hong at support. So like you're damaging yourself at two positions instead of just one. And they're doing this while having like two excellent main tanks on their roster. So to me, there's got to be something else going on that like we just don't have insight into because we're not a part of that team. That's the only explanation that I can come up with for why they would ever consider that. But I know that like they have a very talented coaching staff, and like those guys understand Overwatch on a high level. So that's all I can really give you on that, is that there has to be something going on behind the scenes that offers some more insight into this that we're not privy to.
The only thing that we've ever been able to speculate on High Noon Podcast is that they bought a like brand new dice set and they really don't have enough opportunities to just roll dice, so they just do it for the roster. But Lemon, last words here on Seoul Dynasty and kind of their roster issues and the tank position.
I'll be the weird person and the devil's advocate and say I'm kind of entertaining the idea of Ryu Jae Hong on main tank because he brings a lot of leadership, and having your main tank as a leader is very important at coordinating your dives, and why he's finding so much success on Winston and maybe not as much as Reinhardt, but there was some level of success in stage 3. And I mean, as in saying success as in he was decent. Like they push the Spitfire in stage 3 in game 5, like near the end of the stage when, it didn't matter as much. And after being 4-0'd by them twice, so it was kind of a change around. And I believe they 4-0'd the Outlaws in stage 3, running him on main tank as well. So I believe their coaching staff had mentioned that running him on main tank brought some kind of stability as a team. So whether it's a change in shot calling and the way that they're playing around Ryu Jae-hong, yes, maybe statistically he's not as good as gesture as somebody else, but a change in flexible or doing something different. Like, I'm the type of person that kind of throws something to the wall and see if it sticks, and maybe throwing Ryu Jae-hong against a wall several times, giving him more time against the wall, maybe you could see some success. But definitely in stage 4, everybody has mentioned, not very good. I mentioned, yeah, he was good in stage 3, but stage 4, he's struggling, but I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so weird to watch Seoul Dynasty, who is like such a position at the top at the beginning, and then they've just been trying out all this weird stuff, and it seemed to really hurt them. But we'll see if they can pull it out in this final stage. But let's move on here and talk about burnout for players, for staff, for the Overwatch League in general. It's been a pretty hotly discussed topic with many different players and organizations just around the league. So Thist, we'll start with you. Is this becoming a real big problem with for Overwatch League, the burnout of the players and the staff and everyone involved?
I think it's always been a concern. I feel like somebody looking in from the outside, it's clear that some Overwatch League professionals can handle the scheduling and the training and the burnout better than others. And I think with this being the first season, there's no way to really know how people were going to take it. And some took it really badly. Like, some players had and have mental illnesses or were very homesick, and burnout makes that like 100 times worse. And I think it's dangerous for players to get burnout, especially if they're motivated to like ignore it or push past it, and that not only affects your gameplay but your health, and it's something you can't ignore. Like, you have to take a break. So I don't think it's a huge problem yet, but it will always be a concern, I think.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Bare Hands, you've experienced, I mean, you were on the inside for a very long time. Well, what are your thoughts here on burnout for the players and the staff?
Yeah, I would mostly agree with Fist's points. I would say that it's definitely something that has been an issue since the beginning, like even since preseason. And I think some teams are better able to handle that from a managerial point of view than others. And like she said, some players are affected by it more than other players. And as we move forward and we start to see more regionalization in Overwatch League, say in season 3 or 4, or whenever that begins to happen, that's still going to be an issue because players are obviously representing teams that are disparate from the regions that they're local to. So, in terms of handling that, I think it's going to be one of the biggest factors of success from an organizational point of view, in terms of the things that are kind of outside of the players' hands. So I wouldn't say it's a new issue, because I think it's an issue that frankly we've seen even before Overwatch League. Like, if you look at when Envy was playing in Apex, a lot of people cited sort of that hotel fatigue as part of the reason for their performance. So it's something that's definitely been an issue in esports going on, and I think we're exacerbating it in some ways based on the structure of the Overwatch League. So attending to that is definitely of paramount importance to any organization that wants to be successful.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good points. And yeah, I almost forgot about the whole envious thing back in Apex way back in the old days. But Lemon, what are your thoughts here? What are you thinking about the player fatigue and fatigue just in the league in general?
It's just such a glaring issue, and there's been several players bringing these issues to light. Like, was it Taimu in the hospital, Effect going back to Korea for his issues, Pine has missed matches due to panic and stress, Shanghai Dragons, there was a player I think that quit or went back, and just almost every team has either cited some burnout, stress, or had a player have to step out of matches due to stress and burnout. Then you have Shanghai Dragons coming out with, we have a 20-hour practice schedule or something crazy like that, and it kind of makes you wonder, what are the other teams putting their players through? And it kind of, not only what is the schedule or the practice schedule within those teams, but then the breaks in between the stages and the breaks just in between matches and saturation of matches. But I think Overwatch League is definitely putting an incentive forward to put a light on mental health and helping these players. But there's definitely going to need to be an institution of breaks in between the stages, longer breaks, or like reading week when you go to college or university, like in Canada, you get those reading weeks, and I think you should kind of get that for Overwatch League too.
I have no idea what that is, but it sounds like a good idea.
Maybe I think Canadians know what that is.
It's awesome. You don't read it all.
That might be a uniquely Canadian thing, but I think I can get from context clues what it means. But Taco, last words here on burnout for players in the Overwatch League.
I guess it depends on exactly how we phrase the question. Is it a problem for the Overwatch League? I don't think so. Is it a problem within the Overwatch League? Only for the players who have it and the teams that have good players who have it. I think you look at Major League Baseball, they play 162 games over like 8 months. Basketball is 80-something games. NHL is 80-something games. Like, yeah, it's a tough schedule, and that's part of being a professional athlete. The flip side of that is during preseason and early in the season, the teams and the players really were kind of pushing themselves really, really far. And most of them, to my knowledge, everyone I've talked to has significantly dialed back their practice schedules, their scrim schedules. They do a lot more VOD review and a lot more strategizing and a lot less just grinding scrims until they're ready to pass out. I think part of that is they had to learn what this league is going to be and what being a professional athlete is here, right? You're a rookie going to the NFL. There's 10+ year veterans who can tell you how to eat, how to cook, when you can go out. Like, this whole support system that they don't have. So going forward, I don't think it's a big deal for the league. I think people are just going to learn how to handle it. The people who can't handle it won't make it, and that's professional sports.
Definitely a lot of good points around the entire payload here. I think it's definitely going to be something that needs to get addressed in some capacity, but I think I think we'll weather through it for sure as a league. But moving on to the last question here in round number 2. We talked a little bit earlier about Dallas and San Francisco. San Francisco Shock here, having a little bit of a win streak going, looking a little bit better than they have in previous stages. But Bare Hands, are we maybe seeing Dallas and or San Francisco in a stage 4 playoffs here, maybe?
I'm going to say no if the question is Dallas and San Francisco. Dallas or San Francisco, I think there's a chance that one of them could sneak into that 4th spot. And frankly, I think San Francisco has a little bit of a better shot right now based on the teams that they've played and their remaining schedule in the stage. Like, I know it's still early, but we are almost halfway through the stage. I think San Francisco has a shot to sneak into that 4th spot, but it's going to be tough. You know, I think they're right there on the bubble.
And San Francisco fans around the world just rejoiced. And even though you didn't necessarily pick Dallas Fuel fans also rejoiced.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like, I think Dallas has a shot. Like, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them. Then they play each other this week, I think, right? I think the outcome of that match is, you know, huge for whoever wins that. I think whoever wins that is sitting right there on the bubble to maybe get that 4th spot.
Interesting. Lemon, what are you thinking here? Is it going to be enough, this new meta, these new coaching changes for these two teams that technically San Francisco still has a chance to make the season playoffs in the I could technically walk to the moon phase sense of it, but Dallas is mathematically eliminated. Are either of these two teams possibly getting a stage playoff bid here?
Well, kind of as I've talked about before about Dallas, how they have a lot of boo-boos and band-aids that they need to put on their team, and they just got a new coach, and I think that's going to be a drastic flip on their back of things that are going to change, and you can already tell with the rosters, putting people on different roles and trying out different metas. So Dallas, I think, is a solid no. One, because I think they're just trying to be middle of the pack. They're trying to be better than the worst team ever. So I think their mindset is to be middle of the pack, while as the Shock, I think, are very consistently good enough to take a spot away from, well, I already know that, like, and we all know that NYXL is going to have a spot there. So who do the other 3 spots go to? And then you got to beat out, like, the Valiant, you got to beat out the Gladiators, you got to beat out the Fusion. Could the Shock take a spot from those 3 teams? Probably not, but it's a grain of salt. You got to take that with a grain of salt because it is very early to predict how well these teams are doing. But Shock are consistent, while as Dallas Fuel are extremely inconsistent.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of those points as well. But maybe, just maybe, they'll be inconsistently bad, which means that they'll actually be. I'm trying to get a spin for you here, Fuel fans. I'm clinging on to straws for you. Taco, what do you think? Are we going to see Dallas and or Shock in the Stage 4 playoffs here?
Definitely not and. That was a good one. I would say San Francisco has the better chance. Does everybody remember like 6 days ago when we all thought Houston was a shoo-in for the stage playoffs and a potential rival for NYXL until they got absolutely do you remember when they got dumpstered by San Francisco 4-0? That's the kind of team making a statement like, hey guys, we have Architect and also a bunch of other really good players and we're ready to make a stage playoffs. The Fuel have beaten up on Shanghai. Like I think they could. That they have a lot of talent. They're a good team. Arrow's a good coach. That they could get better, but San Francisco definitely has the inside track if we're comparing the two. I want to see Dallas beat a really just solid team to show some amount of consistency, to show that this composition that they're running, this like general strategy that they've been relying very, very heavy on, is not just going to get figured out by one of the good teams and then copied by everybody else, and they're just going to go right back in the dumpster. So I'd say San Francisco more likely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there. But Thist, last words here. I know you're a Dallas Fuel fan, even though you didn't wear the Dallas Fuel jersey today. But what are you thinking? Could they make it? Maybe Dallas, maybe San Francisco. What are your thoughts?
You know what? Why not? I'm only sure of 5 things as far as Overwatch League goes, and that's New York, the Los Angeleses, and the 2 bottom teams. You know, that's going to be consistent. And there's just been not so many, but very significant shakeups lately that I have literally no idea. And you know what? That's great. Like the more guessing I have to do, the better, because that makes it all the more exciting. I think Mickey is the best Brigitte in the league, and why not? You know, why not? Maybe they could. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice thing to be able to think that after all this Overwatch we've seen in Overwatch League, that with the exception of basically just NYXL, we're not seeing everything be completely figured out and people be able to 100% guess who's going to win every match every week, which we definitely could whenever Envious would play against anyone, or whenever Rogue would play against anyone who's not Envious. Like, you knew, okay, this is just over. This tournament's over. Let's just play the playoffs. All these other teams can just go back home. It's not the case anymore. Even NYXL has fallen before, so it's a very interesting place to be.
That's actually something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. You're talking about parity across the league, basically. And if you look at other major sports leagues, like the NBA, for example, we're about to see an NBA Finals that's the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's like the fourth or fifth year in a row that's the same finals. And, like, I don't know, things like this just make me think about, like, is parity actually good? Would parity be good for Overwatch League? I'm not sure. Like, is it better to have one team that's like a solid front runner, or is it better to have like 4 or 5 teams that are all really competing for a playoff spot? Like, I don't know the answer to that.
I think as long as it's my team, then yes, it should be one front runner. And as long as it's LeBron James, it should be one front runner. No, I'm just lucky in who I pick for teams. But that is a question for as a question for a different time, as it does bring us to the end of round number 2. We had a little bit of division here, but it's still very close. Still could be anyone's game. We have rounding out the pack here. We've got Thist with 35 points. We've got Taco with 37, Bare Hands with 38, and Lemon sticking strong in first place with 39 points as we head into the buy or sell round, which is round number 3.
The payload is approaching its destination.
This, of course, is, like I mentioned before, the buy or sell round. For those of you who are new to the show, buy means that you agree, sell means you disagree, and I heavily suggest that the guests choose a definitive buy or sell. Being wishy-washy is not going to get you points. It historically doesn't get you points. So let's move on here. Last stage, Boston 10-0 in the regular stage, obviously lost to in the playoffs, but a very good run for Boston. And now, man, it is not looking great for them. So, Lemon, we'll start with you. Buy or sell Boston making the end of season playoffs?
Oh, sell the hell out of that. Like, that's not happening. I feel like ever since they lost their coach, they've been like lost little puppies. 0-4 while there's teams that are 4-0 right now. Like, you have so much to catch up on, and there's not really a solution in sight.
Yeah, I mean, it's man, they're not doing too bad. They're in that big tie for second place right now, but boy, is that buffer going away quickly. Taco, what are your thoughts? Buying or selling Boston in the playoffs?
So way back in one of the first episodes of Around the Payload during Stage 1, I bought Boston as a playoff team while everyone still thought they were the worst. It was me and Trevor May buying it, Lone Wolves, and I'm sticking with it. I am buying them again. This time, not because I think that they're too good and that they're going to continue ascending, but because it's just mathematically going to be difficult for them to not make the playoffs. If you look at the 7 and 8 seed right now, it's the Seoul Dynasty who can't get out of their own way. 3 full matches behind Boston. The Houston Outlaws, who just took a major loss to San Francisco, 4 matches behind them, and then San Francisco 8 matches behind them. So I think statistically they'll figure out how to not lose enough matches this stage to squeak in. I mean, for me, the big question is, can they figure out how to earn the right to get dumpstered in Brooklyn by New York in the grand finals? Like, will the what's going to go their way meta-wise?
Yeah, I mean, math is definitely on their side. Thist, what do you think? Buying or selling Boston in the end of season playoffs?
I sell, and that breaks my heart because I was really enjoying seeing them just completely dominate. But no, they don't have it. They don't. I don't think that they have it in this pre-Brigitte. In the pre-Brigitte meta, they had it, but they don't have it anymore. It's over for them. I'm sorry. Better luck next time.
Yeah, definitely sad for them. Barehand's last words here: buying or selling Boston in the playoffs?
I'm going to buy it because what nobody else is taking into consideration here is the division factors. The playoff teams are decided by the first team in each division, or the first 2 teams with overall records, I think, and then the next 3 teams by division. So in order for Boston they're in the Atlantic division, so in order for them to fall out of the playoffs, I think they would have to actually fall behind Houston, and they have like a 4-game lead or something right now. So they would have to really bomb out, I think, to not make the end of season playoffs. And I feel like they'll have a better stage than that, but we'll see. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, they're definitely not mathematically in, and man, Stryker has not figured out a way to just overpower Brigitte. It seems like that's just not the way they made Brigitte. So definitely going to be a struggle for them nonetheless. Let's move on here. London Spitfire announced earlier in the week that they're deactivating, or they're not technically releasing, but they're deactivating like half of their roster. I think they have 7 air quotes active players right now. So Taco, we'll start with you. Buy or sell this decision from London to just deactivate half of their roster?
I'm gonna buy that because it's stage 4 and they're trying to, they're in playoff contention. They're very likely going to make the end of season playoffs. They need to make the decision that's going to help them finish the year the strongest and give them the best possible chance of upsetting New York in the playoffs. That's what every team has to think of. If you are in playoff contention, sure, getting up high in the playoffs is nice for a little bit more money, but if you want to win the Overwatch League, you have to beat the New York Excelsior. If they're looking at a whole season, no, you need more people, you need rest, you need rotation for a variety of different reasons. It's helpful. But at this point in the season, they need to correct what's going on, get their best 6 players performing it as well as they possibly can be, and figuring out how are we going to beat teams like New York.
Definitely a good point there. Thist, buying or selling the release of half of London's roster here?
Well, benching all those guys? Sell. I kind of have like a contrary view to what Taco just said. I think it is smart to concentrate on a smaller starting roster, of course, but it's already it's unfair that they waited for so long to like the very last stage to bench some really talented players who don't deserve to be in limbo until they can find a new contract or wait till this one's up. Like they're not going to find another contract in time, and now they don't even get to play at the end of this season. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of lame.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think lameness is definitely a factor for sure. I don't know if Cloud9, the overarching organization, factored in lameness, but you never know. But Bare Hands, what are you thinking here? Buying or selling this decision from London?
I'm gonna sell hard, and for probably reasons that will make me sound more lame than what Spitfire. I just feel like if you want to concentrate on those players and you think that's the lineup you want to play, that's great. Like, I just don't understand why you would announce that to the rest of the league. Like, you're just giving them a bunch of free information by saying like, oh, we have these players, we're just never going to play them again. Like, that just doesn't, you don't get any advantage from doing that. I think it is a little bit better for those players because now other teams can consider, if they want to sign those players at the end of the season when their contracts are up. So my plan would basically be a little lamer for the players and like less friendly to their future careers. But, that's not really a consideration that would factor into that decision for me. I'm trying to win the playoffs, right? And I think the best way you can do that is by denying other teams information about your lineup and just announcing that these players are going to be inactive and benched for the rest of your season is the opposite of that.
That's definitely true. But what if they're doing the reverse, the double whammy, where they announce this and then they just start them all. They just start them all.
They make it to the finals and they're playing against Excelsior, and then all of a sudden Hagopin's playing.
Oh my God! Out of nowhere with a steel chair.
If that is Susie's move, that is 9,000 IQ and props.
There's a few things that would get me to jump ship, but that is close to one of them for sure. Lemon, last words here: buying or selling this decision from London to inactivate or deactivate half of their squad?
Well, I'll have to buy, and I'll have to also disagree or respectfully disagree with Bare Hands that not only does it bring their team focusing on their core and scrimming with the core instead of bringing in all these changes that don't really add much, but also PR-wise. Remember when Dallas didn't play Coco for forever and how mad the fans were and how kind of confusing and how unhappy the players were not knowing if they were going to play? Now those players know that they're not going to play and they can actually openly explore other opportunities, and I feel like Spitfire has been very good to them, that they can provide a salary security while looking for other opportunities, while someone like Coco has been like on the bench and you will never know. They've never announced like what's going on with him. So the fact that Spitfire have been open with their fans and transparent about the situation to the players and their fans, I think is a respectable thing to do.
Yeah, I just wish that it would be like that all the teams would do this all the time, because it just makes our job as content creators much easier, and also for fantasy Overwatch perspective, it would be much easier. But I know that's a niche. That's definitely a niche complaint that the league probably doesn't care even a little bit about. But maybe
I don't know. I think the league maybe cares a little bit about that.
They should, if they don't, is all that I will say as a co-host for a fantasy Overwatch League podcast, an active player. But let's move on to the very last question here we have for the regular rounds here. And this, of course, for the fans here, everyone, all the fans' favorites here, we're bringing back the meme question. And, of course, it's still a buy or sell here, but so last week we saw on the Overwatch League broadcast, we saw a big, huge hubbalaboo or hubbaboo, whatever you want to call it, a big production of how to pronounce Brigitte. So the question here is simple: buy or sell there being only one, air quotes, correct way to pronounce Brigitte. Fist, we'll start with you.
Sell. I think that people should pronounce it however they want. I've heard baguette. I've heard Bridget. My favorite one was Surefor, assuring us that it's Brigitte Gawetta, and that's what I've been calling her since I heard that. But yeah, no, whatever. I mean, we all know who you're talking about. I mean, although, wasn't Widowmaker like the baguette before? Like, then she was window marker. But now Brigitte is baguette. I don't know. Anyway, I sell. Just whatever. Everybody have fun with it.
Yeah, I definitely Definitely agree with you there. Bare Hands, what are your thoughts? Buying or selling the singular pronunciation of Brigitte?
I mean, I'll buy it because the way you stated the question was the correct pronunciation.
There was air quotes, and it was bolded and said meme question next to it.
Sure. Like, I get that. Like, as far as like how I'm gonna pronounce it when I'm playing the game or like talking to my friends or whatever, I just call her Bridget. But I know how Mike Chu pronounces it, and it's Brigitte, and I feel like his opinion is the like official correct one. So, is there an official correct way to pronounce it? Yeah, it's somebody's name, and there's a correct way to pronounce anybody's name, right? Because it's their name. But am I mad if you call her Bridget? No.
I guess like that makes sense. And you know what? I've been called Blevins my whole life, so I do understand the ire. But it is a fictional character, so I don't understand her fictional ire. Although I guess my ire is maybe fictional too. But Lemon, buying or selling the only one correct pronunciation of Brigitte?
I'm gonna sell because I just love She-Torb. That was like my favorite. It was like Brenda and She-Torb, and those were like some really good names. But in a sort of serious note, like I still mess up like Anna and Anna, Farah and Farah, and I think Brigitte or Brigitte. Like there, you can probably mix it around as long as the point gets across to the viewers and it stays semi-consistent. I don't think there's a problem with 2 max pronunciations.
Oh man, so you're advocating for specifically 2 maximum?
Only 2.
So what would the
I don't want like 5.
What would the second appropriate pronunciation be in your mind?
I like I've messed up Brigitte and Brigitte. I just
okay.
Just shortening up the syllables a little bit, or Briggy. I don't know.
I'm advocating for Bugatti, but no one seems to agree with me.
I think while we're on this topic, it's important to point out that it's pronounced GIF.
No, I mean I agree with you, but Twitch chat, who knows? Who knows? Taco, last words here: buying or selling the singular pronunciation of Brigitte?
I'm going to buy, and for probably the first time in my life, I'm going to use the slippery slope argument. If we allow people to just start pronouncing Brigitte however they like, are we going to start having like a Soldier 76 and a Genji? And then people are going to confuse our favorite cyber ninja with an esports organization that owns the Seoul Dynasty. We just can't let this continue. It's just gonna keep bleeding and bleeding onward, and then no one's going to know what anybody's talking about anymore. It'll be just like playing in gold.
Man, the only thing I mean, I think everyone had very good points here. The only thing I'm going to say is let people put emphasis on whatever syllable they want. Okay, that's all I'm going to say, and we will end it there. But that is going to bring us to the end of the regular rounds here, and we are going to cut to the top 2 finalists here. But we are going to switch things up. But first, I'll announce the finalists here. In 4th place with 48 points, we had Taco. And in 3rd place, unfortunately not making the cut this time, with 49 points, we had Thist. Thank you both for playing, which means that Bare Hands and Lemon Kiwi are moving into the finals. And we're going to change it up here a little bit for the finals because we've had some, I won't say complaints, but we've had some constructive criticism saying that I, as the host and creator of the show and doler out of the points, I have too much power. So we're gonna divvy the power up here. So both Thist and Taco are actually going to be casting their votes for who wins, and if there's a tie between the two, then I will cast the final deciding vote here for who wins this episode of Around the Payload. But let's move on and talk about this final question here. There's no points given out. It's simply going to be a try to win over the panel. And the question here simply is, obviously we've talked earlier about there being potentially 6 new teams coming to Overwatch League. So if you had to choose one city to add an expansion team to, which one would it be and why? And by a random flip of a coin, oh, that went way over my head. We're going to say that Lemon won the coin toss, and you get to go first.
I'm sure that was totally legit.
It was 100% legit. I definitely didn't throw the coin on the ground.
So which city? But I'll start with just the region. It's obvious that Canada has been missing out. They breed top talent, and we still haven't been noticed on the whole map. And we breed talent like XQC. We hate them or love them. One of the best tanks and popular streamers. And you got Toronto Esports and Contenders. I would say one of the best teams in NA Contenders. We have strong Canadian talent. Why don't we have a Canadian team? I don't care where it is. I'm going to say Toronto because we have esports scholarships. We take it seriously. We have such an immense events. There's Comic-Con. We have everything there that you need. Arenas, you name it, fans, you name it, dedicated fans at that. So I think that it should be Toronto, and Canada at least needs to get a team on the board.
Definitely a very solid choice for sure. Bare Hands, your choice for the one city or location that you would add an Overwatch League team to.
I agree. Toronto would be a cool city. I think Seattle would be a cool city. I think the #1 city in the world, though, has to be Paris. I just don't feel like Europe has enough representation yet, whereas there's already a ton of teams from North America. We already have teams pretty close to Canada. Just close enough to where those fans can regionally root for those teams, right? But if you're an Overwatch fan living in Paris, the closest team that you have is London, and historically that is not really, it's kind of like living in New York and rooting for a team in Boston. You need somebody that you can root for that's your team, and Paris is definitely a world-class city. So I would have to put them at the top of the list. That having been said, I think thankfully we'll get more than one expansion team, so hopefully Paris and Toronto and Seattle, and I would like to see a team in South America, a Brazilian team I think would be super awesome. A Swedish team I think would be awesome. But if I have to pick just one, I'm going with Paris.
But you're inviting jokes about your team getting Eiffel Towered in the league.
that is a good
Eiffel
point.
Tower meme coming in.
All I know is that neither of you went for the Pander Bear here and picked Buffalo, which is I would have just ignored the other two analysts, the other two guests here, and just immediately picked a winner. But Taco, we'll start with you. Who are you deciding to go with here? Might want to unmute your mic when answering this part of the show.
Maybe I was just moving my mouth and not talking.
Also possible. Also just as useful.
So I was very much gonna go for Bare Hands until the Eiffel Tower meme, and now I'm really torn. It's really tough. I think I have to give it to the meme. I think it's gonna have to be the tiebreaker for me. I'll go with Lemon.
Wait, with
Lemon.
Oh, with Lemon. I think you said London. I'm like, they're already a team name. Where have you been? Okay, Thist, potentially the decider here.
I mean, I'm Canadian, and I already voted for Lemon Kiwi for
Yay.
So I'm going to vote for her again because I agree.
Yeah.
Good point.
I mean, unfortunately for Bare Hands, it's not going to allow me to vote, though. For what it's worth, I was voting for Toronto because it's basically Buffalo anyway. Toronto was a great choice, which means Lemon, you are the victor here.
You've captured the objective. Well done.
Victory music for you. The floor is yours. You can sell out, shout out, whatever you'd like. You have won. You are the champion here. The floor is yours.
Oh, I hate self-promo, self-plugs. It's so awkward.
No, that's the beauty of the show is designed for you to do it, and don't worry. It's all
just to thank you for bringing me on the show. It's been really awesome to do this sort of debate style. But thank yous aside, I am running for community lead for Team Canada, so I am in the top 10. And if you could vote for me, that would be super appreciated. You have to have a Canadian Battle.net account, but if we are able to post links in the chat, I would love votes, and that would be the thing that matters the most to me, is to make it through to that.
Yes, and if you post the link in Discord, I will post it in chat for you for sure. So everyone in chat, definitely go vote for Lemon if you are able to, for sure. But that is going to be the end of the episode, everyone. Thanks all the live Twitch viewers. Thanks everyone in podcast land. For Thist, for Bare Hands, for Taco, for Lemon Kiwi. Oh, guys, remember, all of their links and stuff, all their social and all that good stuff is going to be down below, so don't worry about having to go find them. You'll be able to look in the description below. But for all of them, thank you guys, and we'll see you guys in a bit around the payload. Bye-bye.